Well, 50th anniversary, they gave it their all. Sounds like a very backhanded compliment, didn't it? Am I foreshadowing? Who knows? What the heck am I wearing? Osgood! That's what I'm wearing. Hey, I got the glasses that match. I don't have the inhaler, though. Oh well, we roll with it. So, the Day of the Doctor. The 50th anniversary special. 3 doctors, including one who it's effectively his only outing in the show proper, with John Hurt as the War Doctor. The return of the Zygons. A resolution-ish for the fate of Gallifrey from the end of the Time War. This is juggling a lot, and it's an odd experience to watch it. I haven't rewatched this one in a while, but I have rewatched it since it aired because I do enjoy it. I think I'm a little bit more critical of it now than I was when I first reviewed it in what might have been the first Doctor Who review on this channel, actually. I think so. And I say that because I look at it now and I know how some of the things that I thought it was doing or would have a more lasting impact over the course of the show didn't pan out. And I'll try not to dwell on those things because that's not necessarily the fault of this episode, though it is the fault of the writer of this episode because he was also the one who failed to pick up on this stuff later. So I feel justified being annoyed at Moffat because, like, you planted stuff here that you then did not do anything with. Whatever you think about Davies, he did a pretty complete loop with everything he was working on during his time. He didn't leave a lot of stones unturned for what he could have worked with. Anyways, oh boy, this is starting negative, which is annoying because I do enjoy this episode. It is a fun watch. It has really enjoyable chemistry between pretty much everybody who's in it. So let's talk about the doctors in this. This is still during Matt Smith's era, so he gets to be basically front and center, which I think if I were to nail down the one thing that I do feel is like a tangible fault within this fiction, I really do think this should have been much more solidly from the War Doctor's perspective through most of it. I think because it's taking place during Matt Smith's era, they felt the need to, have him lead us into a lot of this. He gets the coda at the end. And I get it. It's his time as the Doctor, but especially now knowing that we were not going to get John Hurt on screen again playing this part, I wish this had more fully been his story than it is. And I wish that for beyond the fact that I think it would have been better use of the talent, it's also because I don't rank the War Doctor very highly when I look at all the Doctors. Not because he's bad, but just because I don't connect with him. But I feel like I should have, and I could have, if he was granted more screen time. And honestly, Matt Smith didn't need more. And that's not to say that he didn't use the time he had well, or that he didn't deserve it or whatever, but this was a once-in-a-lifetime event. We did not need to be so heavily focused on the current Doctor, especially because he's going to get his proper sign-off in the next episode or special. So that's an annoyance for me. John Hurt, I have more appreciation of what he's doing this time watching it than I think I have previously. I don't know if that's because I listened to the first series of The War Doctor. I'm inclined to think not, because I didn't actually like the first series of the audio drama of The War Doctor that he was in particularly much. But I think I was really looking for what he was doing more this time, because I love John Hurt. So I want to like the War Doctor more than I do. So I think I was really kind of zooming in on what he did a bit more this time. And he does bring a lot of good things to it. Where he really finally starts to click for me is actually towards the end, when the burden's been lifted. While John Hurt is very good at performing a doctor who is worn down by war and just time, the sheer volume of time and what he's been doing with his time, just weighing down on him and making him feel so done. John Hurt's incredibly good at that, but that's also not what I want from the Doctor. But towards the end, where where he's saying goodbye to everybody, or when when the three of them, realize what they can do, and he gets that twinkle in his eye. That's when I'm like, oh, there it is. And I'm not going to say I wish that had been in the episode more, because given the place where he is as a character, I'm not sure you could justify him having a bit more of that twinkle. But that was something that I really did kind of take to heart a bit more. But it is by far the minority of what he does. Tennant slips back into this role very easily. I will say, though, a lot of Tennant's segments, particularly the humor and the jokes, they're kind of lazy. And they're very formulaic by the time the thing's done. I mean, how many times is it going to do he thinks something is a Zygon, but it's not a Zygon thing? I mean, they do it 3 times. Rule of threes, I guess, automatically makes it justified, except no, it doesn't. Each time you see the punchline coming, even outside the rule of threes, you see the punchline coming within the scene itself, in isolation. You can figure out where this is going every dang time, and they draw it out, and I think it just makes me go like, it's embarrassment humor, which I don't enjoy and never will. So, and Moffat knows how to write Tennant. I feel like he didn't. You know what I think the thing is? If I were to actually break down the writing of the 3 Doctors, of 11, 10, and the War Doctor, I actually think 10's got the weakest portion of the script to work with, and his presence feels the most obligatory. I mean, 11, like I said, this was his era, and he does feel like he has a place and a presence in the story. The War Doctor, absolutely. Tennant feels much more along for the ride, and as a result, he's not bad, because he's David Tennant as the Doctor, so he's good and fun, and his energy keeps you glad that he's there, but he has the least function out of the 3 of them, and I think his parts as scripted, not him as a performer, but as scripted, bring the least to the table. I do like that for the most part he gets along with Matt Smith. I mean, they clash a little bit, but knowing that it's sort of a traditional thing that the Doctor doesn't get along with himself, but also knowing that those two are kind of cut from a similar cloth, it makes sense to me that they would get along pretty well, so I'm good with that. Matt Smith does actually very well in this. He has a lot to play with. There's a lot of fun moments, there's a lot of very heavy emotional moments, and he gets to deliver a lot with just a look, which anytime an actor is given the opportunity to do that, I will always treasure it, because you give an actor who can nail it the opportunity to say everything with just an expression, and they manage to pull it off. Mwah. Love it. Clara's fine. I mean, she's very much backgrounded in this, because it's not about her and it's not about the Impossible Girl. So she's just serving the standard companion role, which is fine. That's good. I like her there. Keep her there. Stop building series plots around her. Later problems, get off it. So then we've got Kate Stewart is back. She's really good in this. I'm going to dread each subsequent appearance she has, because my memory is that the writing on her gets worse and worse and worse every time she shows up. But she's still good here. She was good in Power of Three, and she's good here. She has that gumption and that strength and that integrity that you want from somebody in the kind of position of power that she has, and that you would also want from someone who's effectively a legacy character, being the daughter of the Brigadier. So she needs to bring that gravitas and that sense of, yes, she's not messing around, and she does. She brings exactly that. So I thought she did a very good job. Queen Elizabeth was fine. I don't love that their answer to why the Queen wanted the Doctor dead when she saw him in the Shakespeare Code was woman scorned. Like, that's a cheap explanation for that. I don't love that. It's one of those things that I wish they'd left up in the air and like had never addressed what he did to tick off Queen Elizabeth, and that could just be left hanging there as like one of those adventures we never saw. Instead, we see it and it's like, oh, she's just mad because he married her and ran off. That's stupid. So I don't love that, but she performs it pretty well. She has a couple of really good moments. Her gushing over Tennant, I could take it or leave it, but like when she reveals herself of having faked her way as being the Zygon version, saying it never even occurred to these people that I wasn't the Zygon. I am more than capable of taking care of myself. I'm like, cool. There we go. Dig it. Like, Queen Elizabeth was an effective diplomat and leader. So that kind of deception, yeah, plays to her strengths. That's in her wheelhouse. I like it. Billie Piper as the Moment, sort of channeling Bad Wolf, I really like a lot. First of all, I love visually. I love this look, and I love the vibe that Billie Piper brings to this part, because it's not Rose Tyler, and it doesn't feel like Rose Tyler, and it has this more slightly off-putting, almost ethereal sort of presence that she brings to it. And I love what it brings out of John Hurt, so I love those interactions. I really dug that. I like the Moment a lot. Again, one of those things that I kind of wish we could have had more of. I'm not sure how you could do it, but I dig that. I like that quite a bit. Talking about the plot, so here's what's sort of odd about this thing. It's a bit weird in a way that in something following on from The Name of the Doctor, which is going to tackle this surprise doctor we never knew about before, is John Hurt, and it's going to sink so much time into a Zygon plot that does not in any way tie directly into the War Doctor or the Daleks or the Time War. Well, minorly the Time War, because they lost their home planet and that's why they want to take over Earth, but that seems to have happened like with every single villainous race, crying out loud. But at first glance, there isn't really a reason to mash these stories together. The Zygon invasion plot and the War Doctor and the Daleks and Gallifrey. But where it all comes together is in the resolution, in the tail end, with the Doctor and, Tennant and Smith's doctors and all, War Doctor's there too, but those two are front and center, setting this thing off where you have these two versions of Kate Stewart that need to negotiate a truce between Zygons and humans, and they temporarily wipe their memory so they don't know which one's a Zygon, which one's a human, meaning they are going to come up with the perfect compromise for both sides because they don't know what side they're actually on. I mean, that's really cool, but what's great about that is they're in a situation where Kate Stewart believes very firmly she has no choice but to let this black archive that the Zygons have gotten into blow up, and it's going to blow up most of London. She is prepared to make that sacrifice to keep them from taking over the world. And that's a calculation that makes sense to her. And it's an equivalent calculation to the Doctor's decision to use the Moment to wipe out the Daleks and the Time Lords for the sake of the rest of the universe. And it's only when the story gets to the Zygon story gets to its climax, and you see that the Doctor has to stop someone from making that decision, that the connections actually get made. Because up to that point, like I said, there isn't a lot of reason, but you bring it to that and you get to have John Hurt's Doctor see that happen and realize, like, no, this is what I should be doing. I can't be the one making this horrible choice. I need to be the one finding something, anything other than that. So it becomes important, and they fit together in that way. Now, given that the way in which they fit together thematically doesn't really come together until the very end, you'd be forgiven for spending a good chunk of the episode going, this is fun, but what? And so the whole thing with saving Gallifrey, I've got a lot of mixed feelings about this, and there's a number of things about it in general. So, thing one, broadly speaking, I don't have a problem with Gallifrey being saved. What I had hoped at the time, this did not pan out, but what I had hoped, because it ends with this note of the Doctor was going to hopefully one day find Gallifrey again. It was my hope that nobody was going to do that. At the very least, Moffat wasn't going to do it, and nobody would do it for a very long time. That would be basically sort of a, at some point, goal. Something for the Doctor to work towards, but not actually get to anytime soon. Well, that didn't happen. It ends up coming up again a lot sooner. Like, soon enough that it's like, what was the point? But the other thing that I kind of have mixed feelings about, and I say mixed feelings because I can make either side of this argument, because there is an interesting emphasis put on this idea of all the children of Gallifrey that die, that burn, or would have burned had the Doctor actually done this. And he thought he did, but it turns out he didn't. Yeah, woo! And that's actually an interesting acknowledgement, because all we've seen in New Who of Gallifrey was basically the High Council, the people who are going to try and bring an end to time. And it's like, well, screw those guys. But then you get the reminder, like, no, they're not the only ones on this planet. Part of me wants to say that his rescue effort shouldn't have involved the military council or the High Council of Gallifrey, and really should have just been the civilians. Because knowing what we do about those villains, and the fact that Rassilon is going to come back sort of with a different actor and be freaking pointless. Oh, God. Anyways, knowing all that, it kind of annoys me that the ruling authority of Gallifrey was brought back. But then, again, having the Doctor decide to only save the civilians puts him right back to making a decision that he should not be making, which is deciding, I'm going to let you die. I could save you, but I'm going to let you die. And this story is basically about refusing to do that. So that wouldn't work thematically either. So I get why it just, for some reasons, it kind of bugs me. But let's talk about the best thing in the episode. Tom Baker, the great curator. I love this scene so much. I love his delivery of these lines. I love this giddiness that you're getting of Matt Smith being in the scene with him. I love the hopefulness of it. I love the implication that this is the Doctor much later, because this, I'm not going to say they can't roll back from this. It's Doctor Who. They can rewrite continuity however they freaking want. They can. They have. They will. But what this does is this creates a perfect, eternal non-ending for Doctor Who. What I mean by that is, if we take it as a given that the Great Curator is the Doctor at a much later point in his life, at some much later regeneration, having aged who knows how long, and decided to basically retire and be a curator for a bit, if we take that as a given, which pretty much everything in the episode points to that being the case, like, he himself is like, oh, maybe I was you or maybe I wasn't, but, who knows? But let's be honest, everything points to that. So if we take that as a given, what that means is, because they're never actually going to do a series with Tom Baker as the Great Curator, that's not going to be a thing. that means that the show can't have a standard endpoint. It can't decide, and then the Doctor dies. At best, it has to go, and the Doctor went off and had more adventures. And we know the Doctor had to go off and have more adventures because we haven't seen the Doctor come back to be the great curator yet. And we never will, which means the stories never end. I love that. I love the scene in of itself, and I love it for what it does. Overall, I do enjoy this. I have my nitpicks about it and my little yeah, that could have been a little bit better, or some I don't know how that could be better, but I feel like something could have worked better sort of things about it. But at the end of the day, for as much as this thing's trying to carry the weight of a 50th anniversary, 3 Doctors, one of which we've never seen before, the return of Zygons for the first time since the 70s, this does a pretty admirable dang job of balancing all that. Yeah, it's solid. It's a good piece of work. Day of the Doctor. What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. You know the things. They're the things that appease the algorithm. The likes, the shares, the subscribes, the comments, which I already mentioned. I've also got a Patreon link in the description. That's greatly appreciated too, but you also don't have to do any of it. End of the day, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.